Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Priscilla. I'm so excited to make this video of the top things to do in the French Riviera, just to kind of give you some background. Myself, my husband, and my son, who was 2 at the time, actually traveled to France this past May, so just a couple months ago, for an entire week, and we explored the French Riviera, which is like the south of France. And so I really wanted to make this video just to help you guys out in case you are traveling there or thinking about vacationing there yourselves. Last year we went to Greece and I made a similar video of like the top things to do in Greece, and that was received really well on my channel, and I think that it was really, I guess, informational and helpful for you, the viewers. So I just figured I would do the same type of video for this trip. We were there for an entire week and I did so much research, you guys, on all the different big and little towns to visit. So we did a lot of exploring while we're there. So I truly hope that you find this video helpful. If you do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Also want to mention that I did like a full travel vlog as well, which I will link below. I did it in 2 parts. And I also made a luxury apartment tour video that I'll link below as well, in case you are headed there and looking for somewhere amazing to stay, because where we stayed was absolutely amazing. But anyway, this video is not going to be like in any particular order. I'm just going to kind of list off the top things to do in the French Riviera. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to kick it off with a bang here by talking about one of the most beautiful things I saw on this entire trip, and that was a trip to Castle Hill. So Castle Hill is actually located in Nice, which is a pretty big city in the French Riviera. It's where a lot of people will stay, which is what we did. And Castle Hill is basically like an old ruins of a castle, but when you climb to the top, there's a park and there's like a nature trail, walking trail. But the main thing is actually this beautiful view you get over the French Riviera. It's like looking over the Mediterranean Sea and the old town of Nice and the Promenade de Anglais, which is like another thing I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. But the view is just so breathtaking. I highly suggest going at sunset. That's when we went. Surprisingly, it was a Saturday evening and there was only maybe like 50 other people up there, so we were able to get a spot and to get some really good video and pictures. It was so breathtaking, you guys, at sunset. In fact, I think if you can wing it, I would go twice. That way maybe you can go once during the day and see from that vantage point, and then again at sunset. But if you can only choose one, definitely go at sunset to capture some really beautiful views over the French Riviera. Okay, so of course when you go to the French Riviera, you'll definitely want to try to visit as many beaches as you can, just because the beaches are so beautiful and so picturesque. And for me, the beach that really stands out in my mind is the Villefranche-sur-Mer beach. That is not the exact name of it. That's the name of the town, Villefranche-sur-Mer. The name of the beach starts with an M and I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try, but I will link it below just to help you out. In fact, everything will be linked below in the description box. But anyway, the reason why I love this beach is just because, first of all, it was like a lot more private and smaller. It had a lot of more locals than tourists, and a lot of locals actually recommended this beach to me. Beforehand, I was doing some research because the beaches in Nice are beautiful, but they have very large pebble stones. They're like this big, and it's not even like small little pebbles. They are huge rocks, and I just didn't want to lay on the rocks or my son to have to lay on the rocks. So I was trying to find a beach that was close to Nice that had either sand or small green pebble sand or rocks, and that is what Villefranche-sur-Mer offered. There aren't any sunbeds to rent, at least in May, but I saw a couple of other travel vlogs where it looked like there were sunbeds, and I did try to ask a local while I was there about the sunbeds, and they said they would have them in 3 weeks. So that means in June, I guess, they bring some sunbeds out that you can rent. But otherwise, it's just such a beautiful experience. We just popped up our umbrella and our towels right on the sand. It was soft enough to walk on. Again, it's not like regular sand, but it's still very small grain pebbles, which is a whole lot better than really big rocks like in Nice. And what I loved about this beach too was the view was so gorgeous. Kind of like just one of those moments I will never forget, a super unique setting. I kind of felt like I was more in a small little Italian town as opposed to somewhere in France. But my family, my husband, my son, we truly enjoyed our time here so much that I actually went back again the last day of our trip. But I went by myself, not to go to the beach, but to kind of like the main highway right above the beach, which I could see from the beach. I could tell that it had like an amazing view over the bay and over pretty much the entire village, which that entire Villa Francisco town is so gorgeous, you guys. Definitely walk around that town if you can as well. But this is definitely high on my list as a beautiful beach to visit while you're in the Riviera. Okay, so this will kind of lead me into the third thing that I'm going to talk about that you can do in the Riviera, and that is visit a billion-dollar mansion. We actually visited the Villa Rothschild. This is actually located in Cap Ferret, which is very close to Monaco or to Nice, depending on where you're staying. It's also very, very close to Villa Francisco, which I was just talking about. So you could actually do both things on the same day, which is what we did. The Villa Rothschild mansion was actually constructed and owned by Baroness Beatrice Rothschild, who basically was a collector of art, and after her divorce she moved to Cap Ferret and took her inheritance from her family and built this amazing mansion full of art and beautiful gardens. So there's a lot of history behind it because it was built in the 1800s, but take some time to explore it. I promise you will absolutely thank me later, just because it's so peaceful there. You can get some gorgeous video and photo. I actually saw people taking a lot of wedding photos there, and my personal experience was just, I was so kind of like taken back by how peaceful it was because there was hardly any tourists there. You can explore inside, which has all of her, it's the beautiful mansion itself with all of her art pieces and collections, but outside was my favorite part because of the gardens. Specifically loved the Spanish gardens, and they actually put on a fountain show as well, which I did know about, but I'm not sure like the times of when they go off. So when I was actually walking around, the fountain went off, which kind of startled me, but it was beautiful. And in case you're wondering, it's €15 to get in, but there's all kinds of like discounts. If you're under 25, there's a youth rate, there's a senior rate. My son, I think it's free under 7, so it's really not expensive. It's totally worth it. There's also like a tea room there and a restaurant, but you do have to buy the ticket, the entrance ticket, in order to use those facilities. Okay, so if you visit the Riviera, you definitely have to go to a beach club. This is something that tourists and locals do. Locals to France head to the Riviera to go to beach clubs as well for their vacations with their families. Disclaimer, so I had like an entire day at a beach club called Club 55, which is super famous in Saint-Tropez, planned and reserved, but it rained on the day that we were going to go, so I had to cancel my reservation. I was super upset, but we did experience something similar to a beach club. It wasn't technically a beach club, but it was a restaurant that was on the beach called Le Cabanon, which I'll link below. Highly recommend. It was about 15 minutes outside of the city center of Cannes. Beautiful view. We definitely, like I said, it was that beach club kind of vibe because we were able to rent sunbeds and umbrellas, and it was just perfect for my little family. But I think most people head to Cannes or Saint-Tropez to do the whole beach club thing, which I totally understand. We were also there in May, so in May there's absolutely no chance of renting or going to a beach club, just because everything is rented out for private parties for the Cannes Film Festival. But I think if you were going any other time other than May, I would definitely go to a beach club in Cannes, and even one in Saint-Tropez. It's about a 2-hour drive from Nice, about an hour and a half from Cannes to go to Saint-Tropez, but I think it's totally worth it for that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of just feeling like you're a total star at a beach club in the Riviera. Okay, so speaking of Cannes, that is next up on my list. You cannot go to the south of France without visiting the city of Cannes. It's probably the most like well-known city in the Riviera just because of the Cannes Film Festival. And it is like a bigger town, and I think it's very buzzing and very different from a lot of the other towns in the French Riviera. So I feel like you definitely should check the city out. There's a lot to do. You could come up with an entire itinerary. We spent an entire day in Cannes because we spent the first half of the day at that Le Cabanon restaurant slash like mini beach club place, and then the other half of the day we went more into the city center of Cannes to explore their old town and to see the Cannes, it's kind of like, reminds me of the Hollywood sign, but it says Cannes. We took a picture there. It's located at the castle. There's some beautiful views there at the castle as well, and then you kind of like walk through the old town, and it's so picturesque. There's also like a main walkway in Cannes. I think it's called La Croisette, I believe, and it's just full of like restaurants and just a lot of people watching, and it's right on the beach, so that's another popular thing to do in Cannes. And of course, if you happen to be there during the film festival like we were, it was really cool to kind of check out that whole scene and just, I don't know, kind of like experience that as more of like an outsider, since it's not really open to the public, but there was still like a lot of things going on in that area. So the port of Cannes is also on another level. I have seen many ports throughout my travels, but Cannes is like full of yachts. I mean, yacht after yacht after yacht, and I'm sure it was a lot more during this time because it was during the film festival. But either way, visit the port, visit the castle, see some beautiful views, check out the city. It's super, super buzzing. Okay, so one of the things I really love about this area of France is that there's just so much variety, so many different kinds of towns. I mean, you can drive from one town to the next and it's a completely different experience. There are several medieval towns in the Riviera, but most people will either choose to go to St. Paul de Vence or to the town of Aix, which is where we chose to go. Honestly, I wanted to go to both, but there just wasn't enough time in our vacation week to do both. So I chose Aix, and I can highly recommend this little town. I think it was maybe like 30 minutes from Nice. We took an Uber there. The Uber took us directly to like the main walkway where the garden of Aix starts. And this is what really stood out in my mind. I mean, the views from the garden were just so beautiful. Actually, it's called the Exotic Garden. There's a small entry fee to get in, but at the time we went, which was just before lunchtime, there was no line. When we left, there was a little line of like 20, 30 people. I think it might have been a tour group, but either way, a really great peaceful experience at the top. Again, the views are phenomenal. Also, after visiting the garden, we actually walked around the town of Aix, and it's very like quaint and a lot of little winding, narrow cobblestone streets and little art galleries, and kind of like very upscale, very small, quiet even, I guess. But I don't know, overall it was a really good experience. Definitely visit a medieval town while you are in the Riviera, and I highly suggest Aix. Okay, I believe I'm at number 7 now, and this next thing is kind of like a given. I've been talking about it this whole video, but I just want to make sure that I point out to really take in and experience all the different views that the Riviera has to offer. There are many destinations in the world with beautiful, beautiful views. I talk about this when we went to Greece last year. I still think that the views in Greece are literally like probably the best in the world in my opinion. But the thing about the Riviera is that, again, the variety of views that you can experience is just so authentic and unique to this part of France. I mean, whether it's a beautiful view over like the old town or the port or the ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, a view from a beautiful exotic garden or from a castle. There's just so many views to experience and take in, and I feel like regardless of, you know, whether you're traveling in a big group or just as a couple or family, everybody has different opinions about what a beautiful view is, but here in Riviera, you can experience so much. So I feel like everybody is gonna be satisfied. So while you're there, make sure that you take in all those views, take photos, take videos. It is absolutely breathtaking and something that I will never forget as part of this trip. Okay, next step. So this is a big one. Another must when visiting Riviera is to go to the town of Nice. So Nice is actually the most visited town in France besides Paris, so it's number 2. I feel like, again, a lot of people think about Cannes. I don't know where Cannes ranks on that list. I would think it would be number 3 or 4, but I don't know about Cannes, but I know for sure Nice is number 2, and Honestly, I totally understand why. It is such a beautiful town. It is where we chose to have our home base. We stayed there the entire week, and then we just popped off and left to different towns throughout our trip. But Nice itself is so beautiful. I mean, it would take a couple of days to truly explore. Because we stayed there, I feel like we had one full day of exploring Nice, and then there were other evenings where we went to dinner or just kind of explored like a morning here and there or an evening here and there. So there's a lot to do in Nice. I already talked about Castle Hill. I made that its own little point that you have to do. But also in Nice there are beautiful squares. So there's Plaza Massena, which is like this very large city center square that has like checkered floors and pink and mint buildings, and the architecture is so gorgeous. Right next to it's like a fountain show type thing for kids. It's like a little park with a fountain show. So there's a lot to do in Plaza Massena. Don't miss that square. There's also Plaza Rosetti, which is in Old Town, which we definitely went to like 2 or 3 times, whether it was just to eat or to walk through. Very beautiful little square as well. And you can also visit like the Russian Cathedral in Nice. You can also go, there's a carousel that is not too far from the Promenade d'Anglais, so if you have kids, they will love getting on the carousel. And the Promenade d'Anglais, that's something I wanted to touch on. It is like a main walkway in Nice that's beachfront. It's great for people watching. There's restaurants. The promenade itself stretches from, I believe, the airport all the way to the Old Town, so there's definitely a lot to see. My family and I, we actually stayed on the Promenade d'Anglais at a luxury apartment, so we had beautiful views the entire stay. We were very, very grateful for that. But it is a long walk. Like, we walked from our apartment, which was like the middle of the promenade, all the way to the Old Town where the I Love Nice sign is, where people take pictures. It's actually a hashtag I Love Nice sign, which is great for Instagram. And it was like a long walk. I think it took us 40 minutes. Of course, we had a stroller and our son, so but a lot to do in Nice. Again, don't forget to go to Old Town, Promenade d'Anglais, Plaza Massena. Nice is such a beautiful town, and it's something not to be missed on your trip to the Riviera. Next up, I'm so excited to talk about Monaco. Okay, so in case you didn't know this, Monaco is actually its own country. It's actually the second smallest country in the world, the first being the Vatican. So it's very cool to go here. You do not need to show your passport in order to cross from France to Monaco. I think something about sharing territories, I don't know, but you don't have to show your passport. But if you want to get your passport stamped at the tourist office in Monaco, you can definitely do that. Monaco, you guys, is on like another level. Some people go to Monaco and they say they don't like it, but I think that it's just because it is a very expensive town, and it is. But we really didn't do like any like huge expensive meals while we were there, although I kind of wish we had. I think if you aren't with your kids, if it's just like a couple, you know, if you don't have kids with you, I would splurge and do like a fancy dinner in the evening, but it probably would be super pricey. Again, we had our son, so sometimes you kind of just have to go with the flow. So we didn't do any kind of like expensive meal there. We actually went to McDonald's, but with that being said, it's actually like the nicest McDonald's I've ever seen. It's on top of a Starbucks with this amazing view, so that was actually pretty cool. But either way, you cannot miss Monaco just for the views and the architecture of the city alone, just because everything is so like condensed. There's so many people, it's highly populated, and everything is built up, so there's always like tons of construction going on. But it's just so interesting to see. Even the Uber ride there, just kind of like taking us from the top of the town all the way to the bottom, was super interesting with all the winding roads, and to just kind of see the whole little town come to life before my very eyes was just amazing. When you go to Monaco, you have to go to the Princess Palace for some amazing views and pictures. It's free to just kind of walk around and explore. A little side note here, if you have kids, right around the corner from the palace is a bookstore, a gift shop. Right around the corner from the gift shop is a playground that I would have never known was there. I just happened to see it because we were kind of like perusing the gift shop. So we made our way there, and I have to say, this is the most picturesque playground I've ever been to just because of the view. I kind of feel like I'm probably never going to go to another playground in my life with this kind of view. And we were pretty much there by ourselves. It was just one other family, and then when they left, we had the whole playground to myself. So my son had fun playing. We enjoyed the little break and watching him have fun, but we had like this amazing view of Monaco, which is like built into the water. All the buildings are like built into the port and the water, and it's amazing. So you have to go to Monaco when you are visiting the Riviera. Okay, something else that's super unique to do in the French Riviera is to visit all the old towns. So I've kind of touched on this a little bit, but a lot of the cities have like an old part, or what they call an old town, and it kind of just feels like you've stepped into like another world back in time. But it's like a lot of, you know, pastel tall buildings that are very narrow little winding, you know, corners and streets. And the old towns are usually filled with like some shops like for shopping, and of course like restaurants, street food, that kind of thing. But we visited the old town in Nice, as I mentioned, probably 3 or 4 times. I absolutely loved it there. We also visited the old town in Cannes, and also while we spent our time there in France, I took an extra trip to Menton. I believe it's called Menton. It's at the border of, it's like the last little city before you cross over to Italy. So we actually took a train there from Monaco. And the only reason why I'm not including Menton as like a must-see thing is I do kind of feel like it's something off the beaten path. For me personally, I had seen some travel vlogs, you know, with travel vloggers going to Menton, and the pictures looked amazing, and I wanted to see it. So we decided to take that extra trip. I'm not sure if it would totally be worth it for everyone to go out of their way to Menton, but the old town in Menton was so beautiful, and I got some amazing photos for Instagram from Menton. But the whole town itself is just like, has a whole lot of Italian flair to it, which makes sense because it's literally right next to Italy. I believe the next town over is Ventimiglia, which is actually in Italy. So we did notice on the train that there were a lot of Italians that were on the train, I guess going back to Italy. But anyway, the old towns are definitely a must, and I just think it's something that's so unique to the area. So just make sure you do your research and take some time to visit the old towns in the south of France. Well, that's it, guys. That concludes my top things to do in the French Riviera. I know if you're watching this video, maybe you've been there. There are some things that I missed, but keep in mind I was only there a week, and I was also traveling with my family. We had our son, so sometimes I don't get to everything, but I did pack a lot in this trip. And again, you can watch my travel vlogs so you can kind of get some better visuals. I'll link them below. If you liked this video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like the video. I do put out weekly content, and I am newer to YouTube, so I would really appreciate your support, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.